Welcome to Cocktail Limelight. I'm your host, Erick Castro, and today we're going to be doing a deep dive into the Negroni. Now, the Negroni is a cocktail that is very near and dear to my heart. Part of the reason why is that years ago, as a job, I was a brand ambassador for both Beefeater and Plymouth Gin. And the Negroni was my go-to cocktail when I would visit accounts. And you have to bear in mind that 10 or 12 years ago, the craft cocktail scene was still very much like the Wild West. And by that I mean, when I would order a Negroni at a bar, shoot, I never knew what I was gonna get. If I was at a proper craft cocktail bar, I normally got something that was absolutely delicious. But once I stepped away from the craft bars, whatever I was gonna get was always up in the air. If I was lucky, the drink would come out red, so at least I knew they got the Campari right. But aside from that, I got every permutation of Negroni that you could imagine. But no matter where you were at, usually back then when you ordered Negroni, the cocktail was normally served up with a lemon twist, which, if you ask me, doesn't properly showcase the drink's potential. But fortunately for us, it looks like most bartenders and most bars have transitioned back to serving it over the rocks with an orange slice, just like it's done in Italy, which I believe suits the cocktail better as the cocktail blooms and opens up as it sits over ice. Regardless, I had that job for 2 years and I visited bars and accounts across the entire United States, and I probably rarely had the same version of the Negroni twice. Now, when it comes to craft cocktails, without a doubt, the Negroni has to be Italy's greatest contributions to the world of drink, which is even more impressive if you think about it because the drink is only comprised of 3 ingredients, which makes it the perfect embodiment of complexity through a simple build. So the story goes that this cocktail was invented by Count Camillo Negroni sometime in the 1910s, but the drink didn't resurface under the name Negroni for decades later. Instead, a drink was being made in French bars under the name Campari Net, which is a Negroni as we know it today under everything except name. But it wasn't until after World War II that the Negroni really took off. And as they say, the rest is history. So let's go ahead and make one now. To make one, first we start out with 1 ounce of Campari, along with 1 ounce Sweet Vermouth, followed up with 1 ounce of London Dry Gin. And now, let's add some ice and give it a stir. Now that I have it all stirred up, I'm gonna go ahead and strain that over the rocks in a chill double old fashioned. Now as for the garnish, I'm gonna be adding half of an orange wheel, and presto, a Negroni. An Italian masterpiece, every bit as important to the contribution of culture as Michelangelo's David in the Sistine Chapel. Cheers. Now the next version of the Negroni that we're going to be making is called the White Negroni, which fits the bill of being a modern classic regardless of which definition you use. Now the White Negroni was invented by legendary star bartender Wayne Collins back in 2001. So the story goes that Collins was in Bordeaux, France for an international cocktail competition. And while there, he and his traveling companion Nick Blacknell, who at the time was the director of Plymouth Gin, decided it was high time that they enjoyed a Negroni. But since the options were limited at the time, they opted to use French ingredients in place of the Italian red bitter and Sweet Vermouth. And since oftentimes limitations can make us be more creative, this cocktail is a testament to that, via its complexity and its deliciousness. Now let's make one. First, we start out with 3/4 ounce Suze gentian liqueur, followed up with 3/4 ounce Vermouth Blanc, and finally, 1.5 ounces of Plymouth Gin. Now let's go ahead and add some ice and give it a stir. Now let's go ahead and strain this mixture over ice in a chilled double old fashioned. And to complete this cocktail, we're going to garnish it with a lemon twist. And there you have it, folks, the White Negroni, a modern classic that is every bit as delicious and true to form as the original. Cheers. Now don't quote me on this, but there are some days when I feel like the white Negroni might even be better than the regular. Don't quote me on that, but just something that came to my mind as I took a sip. Cheers to you, Wayne Collins. Now, the last version of the Negroni that we're gonna be making was invented by Narin Young over 10 years ago, and in many ways has become his signature cocktail. The cocktail is called the Chocolate Negroni, and it's a beautiful display of chocolatey flavors mixed with botanicals. The chocolate flavors are introduced via 2 different ingredients, those being chocolate bitters along with crème de cacao. And you will see that this helps to further layer the chocolate notes that you get with every single sip. Now, to make one, first we start out with 3 dashes of chocolate bitters, followed up with a 1/4 ounce crème de cacao, 3/4 ounces of Campari, 3/4 ounce Punt, and finally 1 ounce of London dry gin. Now let's go ahead and add some ice and give it a stir. Now that we have the chocolate Negroni nice and chilled, let's go ahead and pour that over the rocks in a chilled double fashion. Now as for the garnish, Narin keeps it nice and classic with the orange half slice. The chocolate Negroni, a must try for anyone out there that loves a well-made classic Negroni. And there you have it, folks, the Negroni 3 different ways in 3 different recipes that are essential to anyone that loves a well-made craft cocktail. Now, if you'd like me to examine any other cocktail and perhaps a couple variations of those as well, be sure to leave it in the comments down below, and who knows, maybe it will be featured in a future episode. And with that said, be sure to muddle that like and subscribe button, and if you'd like to dive deeper into the world of craft cocktails, be sure to check out the Bartender Large podcast, which I host on iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere else where quality podcasts are found. Thank y'all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you again next week. Every bit as important to the contribution of culture as Michelangelo's David in the Sistine Chapel. I just ad-libbed that. That was pretty good, huh?
That was good.